Hello there, it is Monday the 8th of March 2021 and it's day 17 of our Lent devotions. Welcome to Swalecliffe Free Church, welcome to the Manse in fact today as I bring you a message of God with us and what it means to serve God here on earth. So enjoy this reflection. There once was an old Russian shoemaker. He worked hard and was kind. So one day God came to him and said that tonight I will visit you and spend some time with you as your guest. He said this during a dream. The old Russian shoemaker was so excited and he wanted to make sure that everything was all set up for his very special and honoured guest. First things first, he made sure that he had prepared drinks for himself and God. God was coming from a long way away and he was bound to be thirsty. And what kind of host would he be if he was not able to offer his guest a drink? So he was pleased when the drinks were ready, in the knowledge that he would be able to quench any thirst that God may have. Next up, thought the old Russian shoemaker, when someone visits, they need something to eat, and oh, what a joy and privilege it will be to eat with my God. So he hurried to the kitchen, and as it was a cold night, he made a lovely Russian stew, full of beef and potatoes, which was sure to fill both his guest up and himself and keep him warm on a cold night. Oh yes, a lovely hot stew with dumplings was just the perfect meal when he was hosting someone so special. Finally, thought the old Russian shoemaker, his presence alone is a gift enough for me, so I should prepare a gift for him, for God, in return. And I'm the best shoemaker in all of Russia, so I know I will make him the finest pair of shoes. But one problem, I don't know his size. Well, as I don't know what time he's coming, I'll get to work and just try to make a pair in every size. So the shoemaker got to work on making these beautiful shoes, which would keep the coldest feet warm and dry in the Russian winter. Nothing would stop him accomplishing his goal. And then, knock knock, a knock on the door startled him. Is it God? Is he here already? The shoemaker went and answered the door, but it wasn't God. Instead, he found himself greeting a weary traveller, homeless it seemed, who looked desperate and in need. How can I help? Asked the shoemaker, itching to get back to the important business before his special guest arrived. Oh, so sorry to bother you, sir, but I've been on the road for miles without so much as a sip of water. I was just hoping you could allow me a drink. The shoemaker was frustrated and exasperated at first, but then saw the desperation on the face of his doorstep visitor. Okay, he said, handing over the drinks reserved for him and God. I'm sure God won't mind not having a drink. The stranger left satisfied and grateful, and the shoemaker got back to the important business at hand of making God his gift. That was to be the real offering to God, after all. A few more shoes were made before there was another knock on the door. Oh, this must be God this time, thought the shoemaker out loud. He was not one, after all, for many visitors. But alas, when he opened the door, he simply saw a young lady and an even younger boy, skinny as they come. They didn't ask for anything. It seemed they had leant on the door in their exhaustion. But the shoemaker was so overcome with compassion for these clearly impoverished young people that he surprised himself. He invited them in and insisted they ate some of his stew. He'd made more than enough after all. The young people were so grateful, but still seemed hungry after their first portions. So the shoemaker prepared them another bowl each from the rest of his meal, meaning there would be none left for him and for God. I'm sure God won't mind though, and the gift I'm making is what's really important anyway. After the young people left full and satisfied and warm, the shoemaker got back to his business, building shoe after shoe as the hours ticked by, and the late night became the early hours. The shoemaker was sure that God said he'd come tonight, so pressed on until his final shoe was made. It was 5 a.m. and he was tired. But God hadn't come, and here he was with all these shoes. What a waste of time, and what a waste of materials. The shoemaker was so angry with God and couldn't believe he'd stood him up. He was just about to throw all his freshly made shoes in the incinerator in his anger when out of the corner of his eye he spotted the orphanage across the road. The orphans often had no shoes, and he often felt sad seeing them so cold. So the shoemaker did not throw his shoes in the incinerator, but instead bagged them up and left them in a bag for collecting on the orphanage doorstep. Later that day the orphans were carolling, and the shoemaker smiled, recognising his work on each of their feet. He was not convinced it made up for God not showing up, though. Later that evening the shoemaker fell back asleep, and God appeared to him once again. "Why didn't you come?" said the shoemaker. "I got everything ready for you." "I did come," said God. "When I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was cold, you clothed me with your shoes." Our Bible reading is this today. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." That's from Matthew 25:34-40. So let's just pray as we reflect on those words. Lord God, help us to recognise you in the cold, the sick, the hungry and the needy. May we be people who serve you by serving them, recognising your presence amongst us. Amen. Amen. Sorry for the slightly longer one today. Check back in tomorrow for another reflection. God bless and goodbye.